Welcome, guys. So McDonald's ends AI drive-through experiment. I didn't even know they were experimenting with them. So they increased the minimum wage to $20, and then they were planning to test AI for their drive-through. So yeah, I don't think AI is coming for like fast food jobs. Maybe like as a cashier, that's it. But like to hand over your food, that's not gonna that's not gonna get replaced. Although the fast food prices have been getting more expensive on the delivery apps and in the store. The fast food giant has ended its 2 year partnership with IBM, which saw its testing AI to take people's voice orders at drive through. The company has been testing AI at over 100 restaurants, but now plans to remove the system by the end of next month. Okay, that's good. While there have been successes today, we feel there is an opportunity to explore voice ordering solutions more broadly. McDonald's stock, that's crazy. AI influencer ads are coming. Yeesh. Yeah, TikTok has been adding ads to videos. I notice when I'm in the middle of a video, it plays an ad. So you're telling me this is AI generated? Nope. World news. That's wild. But yeah, we were talking about yesterday that fast food is now considered a luxury by 80% of Americans, which is insane. Anyways, let's. Yeah, we're talking about Virgin Galactic, how they did a 1-20 reverse stock split. Their stock was worth pennies. Pennies. Their stock was worth pennies, guys. Literally 70 cents. And now it's $10. Then it went from $11, and people thought people were gonna invest, but no, it went even lower. So they definitely, if they didn't do the split, they definitely would have lost, like would have gone bankrupt. Yikes. Yeah, split adjusted basis. Sheesh. Is it too late to buy Nvidia, guys? Is it too late to buy Nvidia? But yeah, what's crazy about Virgin Galactic? Yeah, USX was over alleged bogus bailout. Bogus bailout. Damn. So they were definitely gonna get bankrupt. Go bankrupt. But then US the SEC, sues over alleged bogus bailout. Really? They're calling it bogus. A Texas man sued the U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission on Monday over his alleged fraudulent $200 million offer to rescue. Huh? So this guy sued because of his $200 million fraudulent offer to rescue Richard Branson's now defunct satellite launch service company, Virgin Orbit. Oh, okay. So the company was going to bankruptcy, and then this guy was offering $200 million. According to the SEC, Brown fabricated a screenshot. He fabricated a screenshot of his company's bank account to show current balance. Wow, though it contained less than $1, and demanded that Virgin Orbit pay 3% breakup fee if his investment did not close. What the hell? This guy's trying to bamboozle what? A space company? That's insane. with fabric with fabricated screenshots, Virgin Orbit's stock price rose 33% after the offer, but fell after it collapsed. According to the complaint filed in the Fort Worth, Texas federal court, the SEC is seeking a civil fine, abandoned offering securities, and other remedies. In the statement, on Tuesday, the defense said the SEC complaint was filled with outrageous errors, fabrications, and biased allegations that favored Virgin Orbit management. Once worth $3.8 billion, and counting the U.S. military among its largest customers, Virgin Orbit filed for Chapter 11 protection on April 4th after struggling to secure long-term funding in the wake of a failed launch 3 months earlier. Wait, so people are people aren't investing in space anymore, huh? That's crazy. We are 8 minutes in. Hello, hello. No. If you're holding Nvidia or Fang right now, it's time to prepare for a massive shift. this is crazy. Virgin Galactic's really going under, huh? I had faith in this company. The broad market index rose 0.2%, while the Nasdaq Composite traded below break even. The Dow Jones gained 100 points. Retail sales rose in May versus. Stock prices are going up without the help of rate cuts. Energy stocks.
That junk was going south. It was very, very bad. So a lot of people, car payments. Are car payments too high in America today? Make sure y'all hit a like for the
I'm
algorithm.
pretty sure the
Subscribe to
car
the channel,
payments are
turn on
pretty
your
bad.
notifications. Let's get it rocking.
Car payments have reached record highs in recent years, and Americans are feeling the pinch. The average payment on a new vehicle rose 40% between April 2019 and April 2024.
Some people will look at this and they will say, are you kidding me? I mean, that's basically a house payment for a lot of people.
You know, we always had this idea that a new vehicle was something that was attainable for every American. Well, clearly, we've moved away from that premise.
Blame it on high interest rates and high vehicle prices caused by pandemic-era shortages. The good news, payments have dropped a bit and are expected to fall further.
The average car payment is $760.
That's insane.
That's not including insurance.
Yeah.
That's not including gas. That's not including maintenance. That's just you making it, and that ain't even including.
That's
and breaking
crazy.
Down with
the average new car payment is basically $800. That's crazy. That's so bad. Like, that is most people's check. Majority of it. Or like bi-weekly check. $800. The average car payment. Wow. It sucks if you have student loans and credit card debt too. I don't know. I feel like the education system really messed up most of the people. Most of the people going to college right now. I think that's they screwed them over because they got greedy.
This rate is on a car payment. How can an average American making what $35,000-$40,000 a year, the combined household income is like $67,000 a year, how can y'all afford to spend upwards of $8,000 to $9,000 just on a car payment alone? And again, throw in insurance, throw in maintenance, throw in gas. How can y'all afford this stuff?
I know. I wonder that too. I was like, really? I was like, You guys are spending that much on a car?
If I was making $100,000 a year, I can't fathom the idea of paying a $760 car note.
Yeah.
If I was making $100,000 a year, you think that I'm okay with putting upwards of more than 10% of my gross, not even my take home, upwards of 10% of my gross into a car payment? Shh.
We've reached a peak. We've turned a corner. However you want to say it, the affordability issue is going to get better.
The relief may only be short-lived. Longer term, industry insiders have serious questions about the...
Somebody said, Anton, if you were 26 in 06, I was 26 in 08. My daughter was born in 2008. I was 26 years old. I got married at 22 in 2004. I graduated from high school in 2000. I was 18 years old. In 2000 is when I graduated from high school. Y'all got to get the whole timeline straight, all right?
direction the auto
I was
market
born in 1982.
is headed in.
19. Damn.
Vehicles were growing more expensive prior to the pandemic, as automakers shifted away from pumping out cars for the mainstream toward a strategy of selling fewer, pricier vehicles that pulled in more profits. Many in the industry say that might be here to stay, meaning a lot of ordinary Americans will be locked out. Here are a few numbers that illustrate how tough it has become. Just 10 years ago, car payments were nearly half of what they are today. The average is $760 a month right now, but quite a few customers pay more than that. A near record number are paying over $1,000 a month and have been for 4 straight quarters.
The idea of you're going to pay, $700-800 a month for the next 6 years. I mean, it's just
That's
it
insane.
just sounds.
And y'all listen. And now
Yeah.
it's 6 or 7 year car payment, so they stretching it out longer
Yeah,
in order to lower y'all car payment. One of the ways that
I know. I saw that too, that dealerships are like making you sign like 6 to 7 year car loans and promising you like a lower monthly payment, but long term you're gonna be spending more. You're gonna be dumb. I thought spending double at the end of like your years. You're gonna be spending double, but now some people are even paying triple. So let's say you have you get a $20,000 car, and then you get monthly payments on that car. Usually, like 2 years ago, you would have to pay double. But now some people are even paying triple. So some car dealerships, instead of making you pay $20,000 a year, you're paying $60,000. I mean, $20,000 for the car, you're just paying $60,000.
finesse y'all, the biggest way that they finesse y'all is they say this is what your car payment is. It's the same thing when they do it with houses. They say this is what your house payment would be. This is what you can afford as far as the payment. Listen, y'all, wake up. Tap into the Patreon. Link is in the description as well as pinned to the top of the chat. Wake up, y'all. Okay? It's not about just the payment. Also, on top of that, your affordability is not based off of the payment. You have to start looking at how much you're giving over to the bank in interest. By the time that y'all pay off this 30-year mortgage, 360 payments, you've paid for the house 3 and 4 times over. And that's not even including all of the intangibles and the maintenance and the utilities and all of this stuff. By the time you pay off this car, and they stretch it out. When I was coming up, they had 5-year payments. It was 60 months. 60 months. Now they still saying, hey man, it's based off of the payments. Now y'all got to pay it for 72 and 84 months. Y'all still going based off of the payment.
Crazy for a depreciating asset.
It is almost like borderline disturbing how acclimated everyone has gotten.
Everybody
to the
feel like
idea
they
of, you know what?
need a car.
I've
That's
got
stupid.
700. I've got 1,000. I've got all these dollar figures that other people say, hey, that's my rent. Hey, that's my mortgage from 10 years ago.
So payments are high, and it's not just because of inflation. Car payments rose twice as much as overall inflation from 2019 to 2024. 2 things drove this: high prices and high interest rates. High prices hit the used vehicle market first, where dealers can pretty much charge whatever they can get for a car. But soon they made their way into the new car market, which was hit by a severe shortage of new vehicles and parts. As manufacturing shut down around the world during the COVID pandemic, shortages popped up everywhere. First of cars in 2020, then of parts like semiconductors in 2021 and 2022. With supply so tight and demand so high, dealers and automakers didn't need to offer any incentives.
Jerry Lewis said, do you think that 25% of income on home and car combined is okay? I don't. I think that, listen, here's my goal, and this was always my thing. Minimize and lower the amount of money that you're spending on personal expenses and stop using your income and the money that you go to work for and you trade in your time for in order to pay for your lifestyle. That's the goal. The minute that, always my thing. Minimize and lower the amount of money that you're spending on personal expenses and stop using your income and the money that you go to work for and you trade in your time for in order to pay for your lifestyle. That's the goal. The minute that you can eliminate the amount of money that you're paying for your lifestyle is when you get really rich. Because then you don't have to pay taxes on the money that you invest in, and you can start to put all of that money into assets that you can write off as a tax benefit, and you can open up your businesses as a result of it. And then the amount of money that you break down, and I'm gonna do a whole video on this. I'm gonna break it down very much from a C student perspective. The next video that I drop outside of Stock Club on Patreon, and I'm about to write a note right now, because I'm going to literally break this down for y'all all the way from a C student's perspective of how it is that you can eliminate the amount of money that you're paying in personal taxes legally, all right?
Legally.
That you can eliminate paying in personal taxes legally, even if you don't necessarily own.
Yeah, that sucks. That someone's gonna buy a $30,000 car and end up paying 90,000. That's
Business right off the bat, right? It is important for you to have a business. It is important for you to invest in yourself. But what I'm saying is the first step, and I know everybody want to say, oh man, invest in this, so you got to get into real estate. That's not it. It's a very, very, very basic step. The first step that you have to make if you want to get rich on a fundamental level, I don't care who is talking to you, I don't care what they tell you, is you have to eliminate your personal expenses. That's the first step. Half of the first step is eliminating the debt, because it's almost like trying to climb a mountain with rocks in your backpack. If you eliminate the amount of money that you're giving over to the banks, you then enable yourself to be able to deploy the capital over into things that actually is gonna make you money long term. You're doing the reverse of what they doing as far as the bank. So it's not, listen, the way that they sell y'all is this percentage of my income okay to be paying towards X or to Y? No, 0% of your income is okay for you to be paying to it. So the first step is to eliminate personal expenses. Why do you want to eliminate personal expenses? Because the first thing that you have to do is you got to go and trade in your time for money. So you go to work and you make whatever it is that you make. I don't care if you make $50,000 a year, $100,000 a year, $300,000 a year. In order to pay for that personal expense, you have to pay taxes on that money first, right? So they're going to get their money right off the top. In order to buy a personal expense, you got to pay taxes on the money first. That's why rich people focus on generating revenue through assets instead of trying to spend all of their money trying to impress people. And then they leverage their assets in order to use it to live the lifestyle that they want. I'm not going to break it down all the way here. I'm not going to get into it here. Y'all going to have to tap into the Patreon, and I'm going to break it all the way down from a C student's perspective. The money that you pay at the end of the year is not based off of the money that you make on your W-2. That's where people lose it. Oh man, I would rather be on my own business. It don't have nothing to do with just owning your own business. Your adjusted gross income, which is the amount of money that you make overall, whether it's from your W-2, 1099s, your businesses, all together, they combine it all together. You file it on multiple different forms. Schedule C, W-2, some people just do the 1040 easy. Y'all go over and y'all just give y'all taxes over to people. They say, oh man, okay, so this is how much you paid in taxes. How many dependents do you have? And then they average the difference of what you paid in taxes. That's what you get back. minus whatever incentives that they have for you in order to vote for somebody in the president's office. We don't think like that as rich people. Rich is a mindset first because you got to understand what you're doing, and then you become intentional. And so the money that you pay at the end of the year, let's say that you paid all of this money in taxes out of your regular paycheck, but because you didn't have to spend any money on your personal expenses, you deployed almost all of your capital into things that is investable and also that you can write off from a tax perspective legally, then you get all of the money back because they tax you based off of your adjusted gross income. So I'll use your 401k very simply as an example, right? Very simply. Okay, so you make $100,000 a year, right? And the tax brackets break down to where once you cross that $79,000, $80,000 tax threshold, depending on whether you're married or not, the tax brackets then jump exponentially. So people that may make $79,000 a year may be paying less in taxes than somebody that makes $100,000 a year. They actually keep it more. Well, you can eliminate that, right? So let's say I invest in my 401k. A lot of people say, only put whatever the match is into your 401k. Well, it depends. You have to evaluate it situation by situation. Well, why do I want to evaluate it situation by situation? Because if the max in investing in your 401k is $21,000, $22,000, $23,000 a year, which means that it's a pre-tax deduction, so I'm giving that money pre-tax without paying no taxes on it. You don't have to pay taxes on it until you start drawing, but it still invests in your net worth. Your net worth is still going up. It's still making money on top of you. I'm not just investing in my 401k because I only get to match up to this amount. I'm a max out because if I make $100,000 a year, it reduces me into a tax bracket of about $77,000. So now I lower my tax bracket, increase my assets, and I pay less in taxes because my adjusted gross income is less the amount of money that I paid into my 401k. And so I'm keeping more of my money because I don't need as much of it in order to maintain my lifestyle. Do you understand what I'm saying? So I'm not evaluating it based off of the car note. I'm not evaluating it based off of the house note. I'm lowering my personal expenses so I can put more money in assets. And it's a lot of different asset classes. I'm putting more money in assets so that I can basically prevent myself from giving Biden bucks away. That's all y'all doing. Every time y'all make more money and y'all buy more stuff that's not adding value into your life, it's Biden bucks. And then they give it to Ukraine, they give it to Taiwan, they give it to Israel, they give it to social services, they give it to homeless camps, they give it to homeless luxury spending, they give it to migrants, they give it all of these things. And it's because you don't know. You're not thinking. You don't know any better. It's about understanding how money works from a C student's perspective. Every single individual circumstance
you gotta be careful.
is
like
different.
For me, I'm not gonna buy. I cannot buy something that was $60 trading for $400 within a year and a half, or even for 6 months went from 200 to 400. I cannot confidently buy that in the long term and say I'm excited about that. So,
in Patreon, nobody is messing with us
if you are
because
going
the
to
deep
do
dives
that, I
into
would
the
make
money,
sure
the
you have
stocks, the
future
ability to be
deposits.
able to start to put money in spaces that'll work for you, getting all of the tax write-offs. It begins when you with a community of people that's like-minded that starts to think about what the possibilities are, and then they become incentivized to do the thing that's in their best interest instead of focusing on what their payment is going to be. It's not just about making more money. It's about understanding how money works. And so when we look at this and I say car payments or whatever, I look at this much differently than you look at it because I'm not trying to do it based off of what the car payment is. I would never buy a car based off of affordability rates or what the calculation is of what society is saying and what they're telling you on TikTok. These people don't know nothing. They don't know nothing. I look at these people with these budgets that make a whole bunch of money. They be making $250,000, $300,000 a year, and they be broke. This is what my budget is. Man, that's so elementary. We so past that. We running it up on some whole nother level type of stuff. It's a whole nother way of thinking. It's a whole nother opportunity for you to get rich and for you to generational wealth don't have nothing to do with how much money you make. It has everything to do with the mindset you pass on to the people that's after you that allows for them to become successful, and then they can take what it is that you built. It's not about them having money. It's about them understanding how money works so they can make better decisions and not allow for themselves to give more than they have to people that's not going to do the thing that's in your best interest. You are your own best interest. You are. I'm going to do a whole video. I'm going to break it down all the way from a fundamental perspective. The first thing I do when I get back from off of my anniversary trip is I'm going to pour into y'all. I'm going to give y'all all of the game. Every single thing that you need in order to be successful. Let me see if there's anything more that I can get out of this.
Charging at or above MSRP was common. Anyone who bought a car, pretty much at any point in the last 4 years, paid historically high prices.
Those same expensive vehicles, though, live in the segments that today are experiencing the greatest amount of depreciation. So you might have somebody who really scored 2 years ago. They went to a dealership, they got a fantastic vehicle, good price, but now they've come back and they didn't realize that the rest of the market has evolved.
And then, of course, there are interest rates.
Anyone shopping for a new car is going to get a fair amount of sticker shock when they see the price of the car along with that higher interest rate.
The Federal Reserve set its target interest rate at 5.25% to 5.5% in July 2023. That isn't the actual rate someone will pay for a car loan or mortgage, but it does affect the overall cost of borrowing. Today, auto loan rates are just above 7%. In March 2022, before the Fed started raising rates, they were closer to 4%.
This is a significant jump. Not only are people paying more for their auto loan, but they're also paying more for the price of the car. So that combined higher prices plus higher loan rates makes car affordability particularly challenging for a lot of people trying to buy a car these days.
In addition, an alarming trend has taken root within a segment of borrowers. Those who decide to get a new car when the one they're driving is worth less than the money they owe on it. Something called negative equity. The average amount on those trade-ins hit an all-time high in the first quarter of 2024. Almost 25% of purchases were made by customers with negative equity.
What is negative equity? Negative equity is basically when you owe more on your car than it's worth or more than what you can trade it in.
Damn, that's crazy.
Equity is basically when you owe more on your car than it's worth or more than what you can trade it into.
That's crazy.
And so that again factors into what it is that y'all look at as far as y'all car payment. Oh, this is what I can afford. The dealer ain't tripping because you're just going to overlook the negative equity because you're going to say, oh, man, I want to trade my car and I want to get a new car, whatever, blah, blah, blah. Okay, well, you got negative equity, but don't worry about it, baby girl. We're going to get you into a new car because you don't want to understand how money works. The only thing you want is to be able to drive it off the lot, make sure that you can afford it, and then be able to do what you want to do and feel good about yourself. So what they do is they roll that negative equity into the new car payment. The new car payment just becomes a part of the financing amount. They stretch it out for a longer period, and then you pay higher interest. And as long as you say that you can afford it, you'll take the deal, even though you know it's a bad deal, because you're basically going into another car payment with even more negative equity, and then you continue to roll that over. And then 3-4 years from now, you're gonna do the same thing again and the same thing again. And you basically putting yourself and you saddling yourself with debt for the rest of your life. By the time that you turn 40, 50 years old, you're trying to figure out where all of your money went. It went into car payments. It went into car payments. You're basically rolling it over because the only thing that you're paying attention to is the car note, not the length, not the negative equity, not the interest rate that you're paying, not how much money you're giving over into the bank. You don't even look at your bank statements to see how much is going towards the principal and how much is going towards interest. The banks are making a killing. They making a killing. By the time that you get your car repossessed, 14 years from now, they done already made way more than it's ever going to cost for them to actually continue to finance your loan. And then you're going to do it all again because you're just worried about good credit instead of being more worried about the amount of money that you got coming out of your bank account. So, anyways, let's continue on with the show. Hold on, I did that wrong. Let me read a couple of super chats and then we're going to continue over. David Simpson says, someone said Carter as the worst president. I was just saying you're not that old. Oh, you're saying I'm not that old in order to remember Carter. Not during my lifetime. I'm not familiar with it. Mike, a lot of people don't understand why Mike, that dude, send me a cash app almost every single day that we do the Millionaire Morning Show. Every day without fail. He said, listen to Anton, I owed $12K in taxes last year, started my business and write-offs. My write-offs left me owing only $4,000 now. Thanks, AD. People can't understand why people are so loyal when they support me because I put money in my people's pocket. If they intentional, and they actually take the advice that I give them and they are part of the bag chasers, we gonna help them run it up. Shout out to y'all. Absolutely, I love y'all. All right, last segment of the show, we gonna switch it over. I like to react to people. In order to better understand what their circumstance is. Somebody sent me this video and they said, Anton, it's this guy and his name.
Car payments have reached record highs in recent years, and Americans are feeling the pinch. The average payment on a new vehicle rose 40% between April 2019 and April 2024.
Some people will look at this and they will say, are you kidding me? I mean, that's basically a house payment for a lot of people.
You know, we always had this idea that a new vehicle was something that was attainable for every American. Well, clearly we've moved away from that premise.
Blame it on high interest rates and high vehicle prices caused by pandemic-era shortages. The good news, payments have dropped a bit and are expected to fall further.
We've reached a peak, we've turned a corner, however you want to say it. The affordability issue is going to get better.
The relief may only be short-lived. Longer term, industry insiders have serious questions about the direction the auto market is headed in. Vehicles were growing more expensive prior to the pandemic, as automakers shifted away from pumping out cars for the mainstream toward a strategy of selling fewer, pricier vehicles that pulled in more profits. Many in the industry say that might be here to stay, meaning a lot of ordinary Americans will be locked out. Here are a few numbers that illustrate how tough it has become. Just 10 years ago, car payments were nearly half of what they are today. The average is $760 a month right now, but quite a few customers pay more than that. A near record number are paying over $1,000 a month and have been for 4 straight quarters.
The idea of you're going to pay, $700-800 a month for the next 6 years, I mean, it's just, it just sounds crazy for a depreciating asset.
It is almost like borderline disturbing how acclimated everyone has gotten to the idea that, you know what, I've got 700, I've got 1,000, I've got all these dollar figures that other people will say, hey, that's my rent. Hey, that's my mortgage from 10 years ago.
So payments are high, and it's not just because of inflation. Car payments rose twice as much as overall inflation from 2019 to 2024. 2 things drove this: high prices and high interest rates. High prices hit the used vehicle market first, where dealers can pretty much charge whatever they can get for a car. But soon they made their way into the new car market, which was hit by a severe shortage of new vehicles and parts. As manufacturing shut down around the world during the COVID pandemic, shortages popped up everywhere. First of cars in 2020, then of parts like semiconductors in 2021 and 2022. With supply so tight and demand so high, dealers and automakers didn't need to offer any incentives. Charging at or above MSRP was common. Anyone who bought a car, pretty much at any point in the last 4 years, paid historically high prices.
Those same expensive vehicles, though, live in the segments that today are experiencing the greatest amount of depreciation. So you might have somebody who really scored 2 years ago. They went to a dealership, they got a fantastic vehicle, good price, but now they've come back and they didn't realize that the rest of the market has evolved.
And then, of course, there are interest rates.
Anyone shopping for a new car is going to get a fair amount of sticker shock when they see the price of the car along with that higher interest rate.
The Federal Reserve set its target interest rate at 5.25% to 5.5% in July 2023. That isn't the actual rate someone will pay for a car loan or mortgage, but it does affect the overall cost of borrowing. Today, auto loan rates are just above 7%. In March 2022, before the Fed started raising rates, they were closer to 4%.
This is a significant jump. Not only are people paying more for their auto loan, but they're also paying more for the price of the car. So that combined higher prices plus higher loan rates makes car affordability particularly challenging for a lot of people trying to buy a car these days.
In addition, an alarming trend has taken root within a segment of borrowers. Those who decide to get a new car when the one they're driving is worth less than the money they owe on it. Something called negative equity. The average amount on those trade-ins hit an all-time high in the first quarter of 2024. Almost 25% of purchases were made by customers with negative equity, nearly 10% more than just a couple years earlier. Rolling that negative equity into a new loan comes with bigger payments at higher interest rates over longer terms. And trade-ins involving negative equity have only gotten more expensive over time.
What makes it worse, though, is you probably got a decent loan 2 or 3 years ago, right? So if you do have negative equity and you roll into the next payment, it's not like you're even getting more favorable terms. Like, unless you get a subvented APR from the automaker, you're really compounding this problem. Because again, at 7-8%, that first month payment, that first year's payments, a lot of that's interest. You're not going to dig yourself out of this hole.
And finally, consumers want fancier cars, and car makers have capitalized on that.
Because structurally, the industry has been headed to this direction for many, many years. They've been abandoning many of the lower price points. So it's just all kind of going into the soup to kind of lead vehicle prices to be going up just a little bit.
Good news for the consumer is vehicle prices have come down.
U.S. production is back up. There are more cars on dealer lots, and incentives rose rapidly from mid-2023 to 2024.
You should be able to get a better deal now than you were, say, 12, 18 months ago. So there's some light at the end of the tunnel, but the payments that people are locked in on those higher priced vehicles aren't going away anytime soon.
Even if interest rates were to be lowered, there is a 6-month lag. However, in the meantime, dealers and automakers will likely continue to offer incentives that will bring those prices down. But different shoppers are apt to see different results based on their own financial situations or the types or brands of cars they are buying.
And so there are still these deals to be had. You just got to do a little bit more shopping, a little bit more homework, to find the manufacturers that really are trying to compete quite aggressively.
Consumers with higher credit scores may be able to secure better loan terms. So if you have excellent credit, you're probably going to do better than that standard 7% new car loan rate.
Over the longer term, larger forces in the auto industry could continue to push prices upward. Just a decade ago, the average transaction price was $32,386, which was itself a record high. As of April 2024, average transaction prices were $48,510. Sticker prices are still rising, as are the prices dealers are paying automakers. Vehicles themselves are not getting cheaper. In addition, the White House raised tariffs on EVs from China to 100% of the sticker price, precisely in order to hold off a flood of cheaper cars from the country. These forces combined lead some in the auto industry to wonder whether volumes will remain lower for the foreseeable future as the market continues to shift towards serving upscale customers and charging upscale prices.
Are we going to get back to that 17 million new vehicle sales that we saw for 5 years in a row from 2014 to 2019, or are interest rates and high prices going to keep the equilibrium level lower than it was previously? So are automakers going to keep getting more profit per vehicle, or are they going to try and gain market share and try and just move as many vehicles as possible?
China has become the world's largest auto exporter.
9,000.
Of course, they have like 4 times the population.
$200 equivalent U.S. dollars.
Auto exporter.
$9,200 equivalent U.S. dollars.
Chinese automakers are going to come here eventually, and they're going to do it regardless of if there's a tariff or not.
40 years ago or so, the Chinese auto industry barely existed. Today, the country makes enough cars to supply half the world.
I call it the Great Godzilla. The world has never seen an auto industry of this size, scale. This is a giant machine just getting ramped up.
And it has its eyes on the United States, which, thanks to China's rise, is now the second largest car market on the planet. There are no Chinese car brands for sale in the US at the moment, although a few other ones like Volvo, Polestar, and Lotus are Chinese owned. But insiders say it's only a matter of time. The country has been ramping up exports to offload overcapacity. Surveys indicate a large share of shoppers, especially younger ones, would be happy to buy a Chinese car, despite concerns over privacy, etc. But not everyone shares the enthusiasm. President Biden slapped Chinese automakers with stiff tariffs, effectively doubling the price of a Chinese export EV, which can otherwise be at least as cheap as $11,500. Within the auto industry, opinions vary, but many say tariffs might not be that effective in the long run and may do more harm than good. So, what are the alternatives? We asked some industry insiders to find out.
For the Detroit 3, for Toyota, for Hyundai, to compete well against these Chinese brands, it's going to take something more than simply raising the tariff from 25% to 100%.
I'm not exaggerating when I say what China, the challenge that China is presenting the world, including the United States, is unprecedented. You know, in the case of the Japanese and Koreans, when they came into the United States, we were able to persuade, maybe coerce a little bit. Hey, if you want to sell here, you have to build your transplant here, but they could own it. And they were our allies, and ultimately they were more dependent on us than we were on them. They were more. In China's case, we don't have that kind of leverage with them.
China has the capacity to make half the world's cars, 4 times as many as the US typically makes. Annual demand within the country is about 25 million units. That leaves 15 million cars for export, nearly as many as the US can sell in a good year. China sent 5 million cars to over 100 countries in 2023, making it one of the largest exporters in the world.
You see Chinese cars now in virtually every market except for the United States and Canada. And because there's so much capacity at home and the market at home has a price war, the Chinese automakers themselves are super motivated to get out and push their products into Europe, the United States.
A mix of favorable policies and a booming economy got them to where they are today. China welcomed foreign automakers into the country beginning in the 1980s, and especially after some policy changes in the following decade. Rules were simple. Foreign firms could sell cars in the country as long as they partnered with a local Chinese automaker. Chinese firms also made some cross-border investments. Chinese automaker Geely bought Volvo cars from Ford, for example. And finally, many companies are government-owned, and even private firms receive generous subsidies. EV maker BYD received $3.7 billion between 2018 and 2022, for example.
In state capitalism, the objective is we're going to build a world powerhouse auto industry. To get there, we need great companies, but oh, by the way, at the local, provincial, and federal level, we'll also offer all kinds of help. So the Western automakers look at that and say, how in the world do we compete?
But Chinese companies have also built strong products.
When they came to the Detroit Auto Show 15 years ago, their cars were not competitive. You could see the quality issues with those vehicles as you sat in them, as you played around with them. Now, the cars are much higher quality. They are very competitive once they're hit the ground.
And they pay attention to all the configuration of every seat in the car, not just the driver's cockpit. That's what I think obsoletes the traditionally designed and styled vehicle.
Bill Russo, a former Chrysler executive, says the Chinese have been extremely successful in developing new business models based around software and services. Many recent entrants have backgrounds in technology, electronics, and mobile devices markets.
When the iPhone came, the Nokia products went away quickly. That's what's happening in China now in the car business.
American consumers are also receptive to Chinese cars. Nearly half of respondents in a recent survey said they are familiar with Chinese vehicle brands, and 76% under the age of 40 said they would consider buying a Chinese car. Consideration then declined significantly among older consumers. Grappling with this new reality, tariffs have become a popular political tool, especially with former President Trump beginning in 2018. Auto executives at the time, famously Tesla CEO Elon Musk, decried what they considered an imbalance between US and Chinese trade rules. Lately, it is the Biden administration who is focused on tariffs. First and foremost, EVs. Tariffs on them will increase from 25% to 100% in 2024. The administration says China's extensive subsidies and non-market practices have led to substantial risks of overcapacity. Chinese EV exports grew 70% from 2022 to 2023. They're also raising tariffs on an array of materials used in car making: lithium-ion batteries, graphite, magnets, steel, aluminum, and semiconductors. China controls more than 80% of certain segments of the EV battery supply chain, the administration said. That leaves U.S. supply chains vulnerable and risks national security and clean energy goals. Some politicians are pushing for even harder restrictions. The industry's response is mixed. Labor leaders are in support for obvious reasons. So is the Alliance for Automotive Innovation, the auto industry's major trade association. Tesla CEO Elon Musk criticized the tariffs, but even he had said earlier in 2024 that without trade barriers, most Western automakers would be demolished by Chinese competition. They can sell EVs cheaper than the cheapest fuel-burning cars, and according to some, are way ahead of competition in software and tech. But Russo is skeptical of tariffs. The Trump-era trade war may have been a missile aimed at Beijing, but it landed squarely on Detroit, he once wrote. Two things happened. First, the trade war drove up the costs of a lot of parts American automakers source from China or elsewhere. GM and Ford both reported that the Trump tariffs in 2018 saddled them each with an additional $1 billion in steel and aluminum costs. Secondly, it likely accelerated the globalization of Chinese companies looking to circumvent trade rules by making investments beyond their own borders.
They're building factories in Mexico. They're building factories all over the world: Africa, Middle East, Eastern Europe, Western Europe, Southeast Asia. There's never been a bigger effort by China to de-China-ize its supply chain than right now.
If elected, Donald Trump pledged to place a 100% duty on any car made in Mexico by a Chinese company. Policy analysts say doing so would violate the terms of the very agreement Trump made with Mexico. It might also cause further friction with the country, which in 2023 became the U.S.'s largest trading partner. In any event, executives like Russo argue that these measures are delaying the inevitable. American firms need to face up to the fact that Chinese companies have extremely competitive and attractive products, and American consumers want them.
If you can make aspirational products affordable with configurations that surprise and delight the users of that platform, that's a universal value proposition. And sorry, Americans buy Chinese stuff and have been for decades, have been enjoying the benefits of that in terms of affordability forever. If you shut that off, all you're going to do is make it more expensive.
There are alternatives.
Take a page from what China did 30 years ago when it was just starting out, and it said, hey, you want to come into our market, the United States? Welcome. But by the way, in order to sell here, you have to manufacture here. You have to build plants here. And when you manufacture here, you have to form a joint venture with an American company that'll own half of the business. Oh, okay. And by the way, we'd like you to export from America too, so that we get extra benefits of you being here.
We could do the same. That's called flipping the script. The problem isn't that we have to keep them out. The problem is we should let them in to give ourselves the benefits of the DNA that they've been able to create, but do it under a guided process. Do it with policies. And right now, nobody's writing those policies. Nobody's writing policies that allow some of the benefits of globalization and scale and product configurations and technologies to flow back to the Western world. And that's going to really weaken it's not going to help the industry. It's going to weaken the industry if we don't allow that to happen.
And even though there are no Chinese branded cars for sale in the U.S. yet, more than 100 Chinese-owned automotive companies have a presence in the United States already. They are concentrated in Detroit and Silicon Valley, and there are Chinese auto suppliers scattered across 30 U.S. states.
But you'd never know it because we don't see Chinese cars on American roads, so it doesn't occur. No, what? That can't possibly be true. But it is. They're here. They're getting ready for the time when it's right to enter and sell their cars to Americans.
Remember the golden age of working for the tech industry?
Fortune is unveiling its top 100 best companies to work for. Google's #1 again this year. It was #1 last year and the year before. And Google has everything. Free food everywhere, a Wi-Fi enabled free shuttle. They have horseshoe pits, volleyball courts, street hockey, pools.
Netflix is letting new parents take as much time off as they need during the first year of their child's birth or adoption. Salesforce has mindfulness areas designed with help from monks. Airbnb gives employees a $2,000 travel stipend. Music discovery platform Pandora even pays for its workers to have gender affirmation surgery.
Let's pause here. It's not only big names like Google, Apple, and Amazon that enticed workers with these perks. Smaller tech startups were also offering workers outlandish extras. Everything from performance-based prizes to an endless supply of company-branded swag.
Top performers every month for the New York office get an actual custom oil canvas painting.
So if you pop it, actually reveals a secret room. We have meetings in here, do poker, and maybe even close a deal, have a shot of whiskey or something.
Here is a must-come spot for anybody who comes to New Relic. It's where we have all our swag, all our New Relic pride. And the great thing is you can just come and grab whatever you want.
Well, that was the 2010s. This is how tech companies are grabbing headlines these days.
The layoffs in technology just keep coming. The latest, Google cutting hundreds of jobs in its engineering, product, and hardware divisions.
So this is the latest round of layoffs we are hearing about in tech today. It's two fintech companies, Block and PayPal.
Microsoft cutting almost 2,000 jobs at Activision Blizzard and Xbox as the tech landscape resets.
Layoffs in the tech industry surged in 2023, sparked by high interest rates and a pivot to generative AI. The pace of layoffs in the tech industry has persisted well into 2024. Workers who were laid off now see this industry in a different way.
When you work for a big tech company, you had this assurance that you were going to be okay, that you were part of this greater thing, that you were part of this culture that really meant something, that you were making a difference. And at any moment, snap, you could be axed.
Before 2020, people were interested in the tech industry just because, the high pay, prestige. I think just seeing it as different, right? You have all these traditional companies, and then you have all these companies that are just doing things different. And they look like kind of the future of work. People thought it was going to be like a huge shift towards these fun environments and flexible environments and places where they put employees first. Now that's sort of shifted, and you think, well, these aren't too much different than these older traditional companies that people were already working at in the early 2000s.
The tech industry as a whole has completely lost its luster because people are starting to recognize that the tech industry is just like any other industry. It was up one day and now it's down. When you consider what's going on in companies like Google, consider what's going on in companies like Amazon. The moment they started to announce layoffs, people started to recognize that these companies, these tech giants, are just like every other company. They're hiring today and they get rid of you tomorrow.
The tech industry completely dominated the news headlines in the 2010s. After the 2008 financial crisis, the U.S. Federal Reserve brought interest rates to near zero and kept them there for years. That allowed tech companies and startups to borrow money at rock-bottom prices and opened the floodgates for venture capital money too. Boosted by ultra-low interest rates and a ready supply of venture capital money and skyrocketing adoption of smartphones and social media, tech companies took over the stock market as well. Working at one of these tech companies became a way to get rich. Employees often got a good portion of their compensation paid out in stock options. As tech stocks rose, workers got richer and richer. The tech-heavy NASDAQ, for example, rose about 347% from January 2010 to December 2019. Netflix was the biggest gainer among the FANG stocks, surging more than 4,000%.
I think for a long time, working for a major tech company like Google or Meta, or Microsoft, was really seen as a badge of honor because these were companies that were growing tremendously. And through most of the lifetime, for many of our current students right now and our recent graduates, all they saw their entire childhood was growth. They saw these companies get larger, they saw them innovate, they saw new products that really transformed their day-to-day life. So to be able to work in those companies was seen as prestigious, and it was seen as a very positive step in building their own careers to be able to contribute to the technology that they themselves and their families used every single day.
People definitely look at you differently when you have Microsoft or a larger tech company on your resume. People have called it the easy door into your next job or whatever. I don't know if it's that far, but definitely especially if you're going to a place that is built on Azure and you have Microsoft experience, that seems like a no-brainer. Or if you have going to somewhere that's a Google-based company and you have Google on your resume or Amazon, I think it probably puts you towards the front of the line.
When COVID-19 began, the economy initially struggled, but the tech industry thrived. The Federal Reserve's swift actions, such as cutting interest rates back to near zero, boosted tech stocks. This in turn led to an increase in tech jobs, primarily as people stayed home. However, tech stocks took a hit once the Fed started raising rates in 2022, so the industry started using mass layoffs as one of the many ways of belt tightening. Wall Street loved this move, reflected in the bounce in tech stocks in 2023. The tech-heavy NASDAQ climbed 43% in 2023, its best year since 2020.
In the pandemic, the tech industry saw some pretty big pickups in job posting gains on the Indeed platform. We saw really strong hiring. People were at home. They were consuming more of kind of these tech goods and services. And many tech companies adjusted to that and hired more workers. So we saw a big run up in 2021-22. And then in 2023, we saw some of that demand start to kind of cool down and soften. In 2024, so far, we've seen somewhat similar to 2023, some layoffs being announced. We've seen kind of a continuation of pullback in job postings in the tech industry. But again, a lot of these layoffs that we've seen so far this year in 2024 have really been about right sizing and adjusting to a world of post-COVID consumer demand and trying to figure out what does the world look like after COVID. So a lot of it really comes down to businesses making moves to really understand, where their consumers are and trying to, fit their workforces to that demand.
Now we see the stock market reacted quite favorably to this round of layoffs. We see these record stock prices for a lot of these tech companies. The investors really favored profitability, really favored this lean year that these tech companies had. And so instead of rewarding the growth that we saw and them all pursue years ago, they're now rewarding profit. And so the layoffs have continued. People have become used to them. And regrettably and sadly, it seems that the layoffs is going to be the new normal.
Layoffs in tech show no signs of letting up. In fact, more and more companies have embraced, quote, efficiency as a common mantra in recent earnings calls.
A memo sent out by Elon Musk to the staff outlining that the company will be cutting more than 10% of its global staff.
The layoffs are the first for Apple since the pandemic and come shortly after the company shuttered its self-driving car project.
Amazon is cutting hundreds of jobs from its cloud computing division, Amazon Web Services.
Even though mass tech layoffs continue dominating headlines, the labor market still seems strong. The U.S. economy added 303,000 jobs in March, well above the Dow Jones estimate for a rise of 200,000, with the unemployment rate edging lower to 3.8%. The tech layoffs have prompted new workers to seek other opportunities, according to Handshake, a popular free job posting site for college students and graduates.
So the share of tech majors' job applications submitted to internet and software companies dropped by more than 30% between November 2021 and September of 2023, while the share of applications submitted to government jobs more than doubled. And part of the reason why this is happening is because stability is such a major factor in students' decision around what types of jobs they apply to and what types of jobs they accept. 77% of this recent class of 2024 cares about stability as the number one factor. And the government, for example, is an entity that provides a strong level of stability, whereas they're looking at the headlines and the news and they're paying attention to all of the layoffs that are happening in big tech. And that makes them feel unstable.
The layoff pandemic has not necessarily impacted tech the way we thought it was, largely because of the fact that these jobs still pay really well. And there's still a degree of luster. It's not nearly as exciting as it was 20 or 30 years ago. But it's still exciting, and people really want that bullet point of the resume, even if they only landed at Google for, let's say, 6 months or for a year, they can still say they worked there. I think what we're starting to see, though, ultimately, is that people are starting to consider other options, whether they're deciding that once they get their degrees, they're going to go create their own businesses, they're going to get in government space, they're going to get in other industries, where there is a need for their technical skill set, where they can essentially be a big fish in a small pond, which in many ways gives them job security that they don't necessarily give in the tech industry.
People that are wanting to work in tech and wanting to still stay in tech, I think we just have to be a little bit more careful and a little bit more guarded about keeping our options open and not feeling the need to be extremely loyal and dedicated to one company, because they surely are not dedicated and loyal to us. No matter what your manager, no matter what your director's saying, no matter what praise you're getting, it doesn't really matter sometimes at the end of the day at a lot of tech companies, unfortunately.
These layoffs have, to an extent, hurt the luster of the tech industry, but not to the point that I think that people all of a sudden are going to decide not to go work for them anymore. I mean, even when you consider their recent college grads, 5 years ago, they couldn't wait to go to work for the big tech industry. But now they're considering things, whether I go to tech, whether I go to government, whether I go someplace else. I want to go someplace where I feel like I'm part of something bigger than myself. Tech companies are just not offering that anymore because they're not necessarily disruptive. And I'm talking the big giants. I'm talking about the Amazons of the world, the Microsofts of the world, the Googles of the world. They're not seen as disruptors. Now they're seen as more established companies.
For the people who are chasing like a tech dream job, I think keep your options open and be realistic. Don't just focus on one company and feel like you have to get into that one company because it's the dream. Pay attention to the other ones. Pay attention to smaller companies. There's a lot of really good smaller companies that are, not in the headlines, that are great places to work. Also, don't hold back. Drive towards something and have a goal. Just temper your expectations.
I think the glory days of the tech industry will certainly continue to flow back into the existence in the eyes of our early talent. I think it will look different as it continues to evolve. I think the values and the needs and the desires of our early talent will continue to change as the macroeconomic situation around them also changes. And I think big tech, if they want to remain an attractive option for early talent, will need to continue to evolve their workplace, their expectations, and their benefits.